So let's start with our Shimimpap and our little yoga routine. Okay, we'll start with the Shimimpap. Okay, I'm just going to go straight into the motion since everybody knows these. I don't need to talk us through them. Switch. Let's go ahead and do our Qigong sequence. We'll do them three times per move, and you guys know the move, so I'm not going to have to call it out. We can just follow and do it at your own pace. Oh, if there's anybody watching on Facebook, I'm sorry I'm not explaining. It's always easier to join the Zoom. So for now, you can just follow. Okay, so Anisia is back here. Maybe this is a little bit unfamiliar to her. So for her, we're going to do some explanations. We're in the second movement. We're just breathing in as hands go up to shoulder height. And you just breathe out as they go down towards the knees. Next motion, fingertips together. You breathe in as you circle up the midline, out as you go down and around. 3 more times at your own pace. And the third time, you're going to make a little triangle in front of your head. You're going to breathe in as we scoop behind us, out as hands go up to head height. 3 more times at your own pace. In as you scoop behind us, out as your hands go up to your head height. And we make that same triangle again. You're going to breathe into your hands. As you breathe out, you lower that triangle where your thumbs touch your belly button, fingertips underneath your triangle, underneath your belly, drop your shoulders. You breathe into that triangle 3 times. Good. So we're going to go ahead and sit. We're going to sit for 30 minutes. I think, Anicia, I think you were telling me about your experience before, and I remember that you were comfortable sitting. You had some experience. So Anicia, are you okay with 30 minutes? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Okay, good. So 30 minutes. We're going to go ahead and do a little half bow. Ooh, I think we're frozen. Oh boy. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so you can hear me, but I think our screen is frozen, but you can hear me okay, right? All right, we're just going to continue. I'm not going to restart the Zoom because then we'll lose all of you. So, at this point, what we do is a little half bow, and then we rub our hands together, and you can put them on your face and your eyes. You can run them through your hair. You can massage down your ears. You can tap down and tap out your shoulders and traps and chest. You can give your belly a little rub. You can go ahead and massage your back and extend your legs and make yourself comfortable. So we can still have a question and answer, even though I don't know what's going on with Zoom. So I have Brian here in the audience, and I'm going to ask him first if he has something that's going on with him, and then we'll open it up to everybody out there. Brian, how are you doing, my friend? Do you have something that you'd like to comment on, a question or something going on with you?
I'm doing well, Gene. Thank you. I don't have any big pivotal things, but I would like to share something tonight, if you don't mind.
I'd love it.
So Mason is my girlfriend, Mason. She is a bird lover. She loves birds. Yesterday, a bird tried to fly through our house and the door was closed. So he ran into the door and ended his life.
Oh.
So knowing Mason is she put it in a box and I told her I'll take it out and bury the bird yesterday. But I couldn't do it without actually stopping and acknowledging the fact that, he had a life and it's now over. So for Mason, I wrote a piece that I would like to share today.
Oh, great.
So it's called Last Flight. And it's really short. It goes, inspiration grew from the place I buried myself last night. As I softly pushed the cool dirt over my now cold green and yellow colored feathers, I knew I was home, at least for a while, at least until the next journey comes to awake me and I learn to fly freely again. So I said that to her. She was very much so appreciative and I was glad to do it. So, and it was just a reflective moment of how short life can be for something versus others, and how we are alive and we are all connected with this thing called life. So I want to take a moment and appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a lovely offering. I'm glad that you shared that. I know we have some literary people like Adela, and she definitely appreciates the spoken and written word. So a lot of respect and love for your offering. When in Korean traditions, when Buddhist traditions, when something dies, we've mentioned this before. I'll give a quick background. So in a lot of traditions, when somebody dies or something dies, there might be kind of a migratory period where we're moving from one existence to another, right? Let's say in the classic examples, when you die, you see the white light, a family member comes and gives you a life review, and then they take you to the light, right? Something like that. We kind of heard that baseline kind of story. Or whether it's a Christian tradition, when you die and you might have someone like a disciple or an apostle of Jesus come to you, or a family member and take you to the pearly gates, etc. A lot of traditions have kind of like a guide or somebody that helps and assists us. For those of you who have done plant medicine experiences, we talk about Mother Ayahuasca and assisting us through our journey process, right? The vine of the soul as we're navigating that process between life and death. So in Korean Buddhist traditions, we say Jijang Bosal. So Jijang Bosal is the Bodhisattva, an enlightened being who hasn't reached full enlightenment, and the vow of Jijang Bosal is, I will not reach full enlightenment until all beings are hell have reached full enlightenment. It's a very, very big vow, right? It's honestly the most intimidating vow for me, we use these oftentimes. Let's talk about a little bit like Christian traditions. For example, if some of you know, like Catholicism, you know that there are saints and martyrs and people pray to Mother Mary and they ask for assistance and do these things. We're not going to talk theology. We're not going to break that down. But these representations, they aid us. They help us understand our mind. They aid us in navigating our psyche. They set up these archetypes for us to navigate and explore our unconscious mind. Can we agree that there's some benefit to that, right? So Qigong Bosai, this process, when we'll just say he comes down, he helps the consciousness go to the next life. So this particular moment of life influences the next moment of life, right? So imagine what is the consciousness of a suicide. I'm not saying that that bird was a suicide, because it wasn't. It just didn't see the door. It's pretty tragic. I've seen that myself. It's shocking to see when they slam into a window or something. But I want to take a second, and there's a difference. If you, let's say, commit suicide in a Christian tradition, you kind of go to hell forever, right? Or purgatory or something like that. It's a pretty long sentence. Pretty long sentence. So when you commit suicide in a Buddhist tradition, that moment of death and the mind with which you came to that conclusion to kill yourself influences the next moment. So probably the next moment is going to be pretty difficult, full of suffering, right? The moment of death is full of tremendous suffering, right? And then they go to the next moment. But the interesting thing in Buddhist circles, Hindu circles, is that that last moment isn't forever. You don't go to hell forever. Don't go to purgatory forever. You actually might have a very, very uncomfortable, suffering consciousness life for a long period of quote unquote time. That consciousness might transmigrate to an unfavorable situation that's very difficult. But on the good side, you still got another shot. You can try this process again. It's like a never-ending lottery. Eventually, you're going to get the winning number because you're going to play enough times. So in the Christian context, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to die, right? It's the finality, the fear of hell and heaven forever, right? This eternity and forever is very intimidating. But in Buddhist and Hindu circles, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to die again. So it's like, how can I get up this merry-go-round? But the merry-go-round, whether we identify with it or not, we can understand that in a particular day, we can transmigrate, which means we can go from one consciousness to another. If you're having a beautiful time, everything's wonderful, you could be in heaven, right? I think you go on vacation, you're sitting on the beach, everything's lovely. You have your cabana boy bringing your Mai Tai. You don't even have to look at the bill because it's charged to the room. So everything is just done for you. And you might think, wow, I am in heaven. But then what happens is you check out and you get the bill. And that Mai Tai costs like $20. And you're like, what the hell? And all of a sudden you're very angry. So you've gone down one step of the ladder. You're probably in the realm of actually the jealous gods, because you actually have enough money to pay for a $20 Mai Tai. You agreed to go to the Sandals Resort. You know it's going to be expensive. But you're mad. You don't want to pay $20, but you can. And then you have this jealousy. I would like to be Jeff Bezos, who could buy 1,000 Mai Tais and not blink an eye. There's this desire to improve your situation, right? That's a step down. And then you go into, because you've had a little bit of meditation training, you go into the human realm where you can see the situation more clearly. You're like, oh, this jealousy is not getting me anywhere. And now you actually have freedom. It's in the human realm you have freedom. You can choose and practice to let that jealousy go and let that karma relax, or you can continue to be angry and you can continue to throw mud at the system who rewards Jeff Bezos but doesn't reward you, right? Okay, I see that you have a question, Amir. Would you like to ask a question about what I'm specifically talking about? Please go ahead.
Yes, it is somewhat related to this. So I do believe in past lives, and I do believe that we're going to have future lives. And I believe that our main purpose here is to evolve and become more conscious and be more loving and more receptive of love and to give more love. But is there any way that you could actually digress from one life to the other? Or is it always evolving into something higher and more loving?
Oh yeah, you could slip into a worse process for sure. If whether because sometimes when I talk about past lives, I want to be cautious because you have a diverse group and it sounds kind of woo-woo to a lot of people. So I like to kind of streamline it and just talk about mental states, something that everybody can agree on, right? If you're in a positive mood, you're in heaven. If you're in a shitty mood, you're in hell, right? You ever had a shitty mood where you're really mad at the world? It doesn't matter what people do to you. Your best friend could bring you a cupcake and massage your back and you just throw it at them and yell at them because you're so mad. That's when you're in hell. So you can go up and down if we were to call it a scale. So now if we extrapolate and think that actually consciousness can occupy different kinds of bodies or different kinds of entities or something like that, this is where you can suspend disbelief a little bit. I don't really care about what you believe or not, but if you suspend disbelief a little bit. So if in a day, you can go to heaven and hell depending upon your moods, then at the end of this life, when this body dies, when consciousness is full of all of the momentum that's pushed it to where it is it possible that this consciousness could go, we'll just use words up and down for lack of a better term, up or down? The answer to that is yes. So if when you die, let's say we were talking about suicide and your mind is full of anguish and suffering, what is the likelihood that that angry and suffering consciousness is going to transmigrate to a better body? Probably not likely, right? It's probably going to transmigrate to something full of suffering because that's what it knows. It's going to go from one suffering existence to another suffering existence, right? So even when you're really, really happy, and somebody, let's say you're happy, you're on that beach and you're having that Mai Tai, you just feel so good, and you get an email and that email upsets you. You get a little bit upset, but you probably don't lose your mind. Just because you got this storehouse, you built up a little bit of happiness. So you can take a little bit of disappointment better. But let's say you're really suffering. You're so mad, you just threw your cupcake at your friend. The massage didn't help. And then you get a positive email that's slightly positive, not like you won the lottery email, but like a slightly positive email. You might go up the tone scale. Your mood might improve a little bit, but probably you're not going to forget everything about why you're mad. You're going to move up and down a little bit, right? So when we talk about consciousnesses, because so much weight of habit is behind it, oftentimes they move up and down just a little. But being a human being, you have extreme freedom and possibility of range. You could move all the way to an enlightened experience of Buddhahood, which means that you just wake up to the reality of existence, you drop your karma, you live like a free man full of love. That is available to you in one moment. You could do it literally in one moment. But the likelihood is not high if you haven't worked on your karma previously. If you've been a bad person and you've killed a bunch of people and suddenly you turn over a new leaf and you're like, I'm going to embrace all the good in the world. I'm going to find love. Great. In that moment, you can wake up to reality, but all of the previous karma is still going to have a momentum that's pushing you in a direction. So when you have these beautiful stories, for example, like Milarepa was a very famous Tibetan monk, and he did a lot of terrible things, killed a lot of people, and he found a good teacher, and he had to suffer a lot. The teacher really put him through his paces. He had to really suffer, burn off karma. So when he woke up to the truth, he was open and receptive, and a lot of his bad tendencies are already kind of cleaned up. The historical Buddha, before he became awakened, he woke up in one thought moment and completely burned off his karma. So this is called sudden enlightenment, woke up suddenly, sudden cultivation. All of his karma was burned off in one moment. But he did 6 years of arduous practice after he left his house before he got to that one moment. There is an influence there. There is an influence there, right? Huineng, the sixth patriarch of Zen, was just walking through the market and heard somebody chanting the Diamond Sutra. If you view all things as illusion, he heard that and he had an awakening. And he saw that what he thought was true about life was an illusion. He dropped it. But he had previous lifetimes of cultivation where he was working on himself. So when people say, karma, there's no karma, that's true, but there's still the influence of the momentum of previous actions. It's still driving things forward. So the Zen poem, the view from Mount Sumeru is clear and vast, but be careful on your way down. When you have a moment of awakening, you're like, oh my God, this is so easy, I understand. I'll give you an example. Several times, like when I was in India, I was actually a monk for a little bit, about a week. I took formal vows, but it was only a week because you can kind of do a trial phase there. I was like, I'll do 1 week. So I literally wore robes and had a shaved head. I was living in the temple, meditating, staring at the Buddha's enlightenment seat for basically 3:30 to 1 o'clock. Oh, actually to 12, because you got to eat lunch before 12. You don't get no food after 12. And then from 1 to like 5, I went to the local clinic and I treated all afternoon. I treated a bunch of poor local peasants in my monk's garbs. And I did that for a month. As I was doing this, it was a very clear realization. It's like, enlightenment, schmeightenment. What's the importance of that? All you got to do is wake up early, eat clean food, take care of people. Life is so fucking easy. I was like, holy shit, life is so easy. Just wake up early, take care of people, eat clean food, get some exercise. Just be a good person. It seemed so crystal clear. And then I got on the plane. I went back to Korea. I was no longer living in a temple. I had to go to work. I had to fight traffic. I had to pay bills. I had people yell at me. And all of a sudden, my habitual reactions came back. And this simplicity of life was lost. I was like, oh my God, that simple realization of how simple life is was lost on me because of the momentum of my karmic reactions. So you can go up, you can go down. Up and down are just arbitrary designations. We'll just say up and down because that's what people think about. So when somebody dies in Asia, they traditionally do a 49-day ceremony, 49 days. They chant for you right away as you die because your consciousness is kind of drifting. It's confused. It doesn't know what to do. It's like, what the fuck? I see my body below me. Am I dead? Right? If you see these movies where people die and their consciousness kind of pulls away, they're like, what the hell? They're disoriented, right? And then they kind of have a life review or they have unfinished business. Another good word for ghost? Unfinished business. It's just unfinished business, right? Things that are lingering, the attachment to not be able to let go of something, right? Someone died tragically, they can't let go of life. Someone is very attached to their family and they died and they missed them so much, they can't let go of life. Unfinished business. So whether you think in terms of past lives or not is really irregardless of the truth. What is important is the understanding that the deep penetrating understanding, which means that you don't just mentally get it. It means you get it through your core, through and through to your bones, this awakening to the reality of life. And also understanding that our actions have consequences. Just because you're an enlightened person, if you have an enlightened master who's teaching you and he thinks that he can just take a shit on everybody's head and be mean and that it's okay because there's really no karma because that's also an illusion, well, the reasoning is correct, but when you shit on someone's head, they get mad at you and they're more likely to beat their children because nobody likes to be pooped on. There are consequences to actions. There is a momentum to the karmic weight. So as we work through our difficulties, when Brian is writing a poem, he's taking a second because his wife is grieving. She saw this bird hit and die. It's sad for him. It's sad for her. So he does a compassionate act. He's like, I'm going to write this poem. And then he takes a second to actually recite it in front of all of us because one, it's actually not easy to recite an original work in front of people. Adela, I'm sure, can attest to this. She does writing circles, and I'm sure if you have people read their writings, people are nervous. It's not a super comfortable thing. It requires vulnerability and confidence. So Brian's working on that. For him to share, it's a gift for us, but it's also a gift for him. And it's also a gift for Mason. We're constantly giving each other little bits of medicine. He's giving us a medicine, but he's also giving himself a medicine. So I would say the Zen answer, I would just say Jijang Gosai for this bird. And also the reality of undergoing a ceremony, like going to a funeral ceremony where you see somebody and you hear the emotive chanting and you feel the grief in the family and you see how they're dealing with letting go of that. It's powerful. It's a service to humanity. Whether it helps the dead consciousness or not, who cares? It helps the family. They have to process their grief. It's a service. So I would urge all of us to get off of our intellectual and our kind of self-righteous attachment and to have the humility to understand that all consciousnesses, as they perish and lose this body, that there's suffering involved, and to extend them some love, to extend them some well wishes, to hopefully come into a better circumstance to practice better. So in Buddhist circles, they have this idea of a pure land. So a pure land is kind of like heaven. When you're reborn and you go to heaven, pretty groovy, right? You sit at the right hand of God, you're at his table. It's pretty cool that you get to do it forever. That's pretty cool. In Buddhist circles, there's no forever, but there are long ass periods of time. There's a lot of time you can spend in a particular existence. So when you go to a pure land is like a fortunate circumstance where the conditions are favorable for you to practice and work on yourself. So right now, for example, like let's say Teresa, if you had a little bit more money, you would be less worried about finances. If you had a little bit more health, you would be less worried about aches and pains. And therefore, when you wanted to practice, your mind would be less encumbered with worried about money, and your body would be less encumbered with pain, so it'd be easier to sit. It would just be easier for you to practice. So that's a favorable circumstance, right? So it's being put in a circumstance, but you still have to have the desire and the drive to practice. So you have to be careful because good situation is bad situation. Bad situation is good situation. If you're born and you are Jeff Bezos is probably thinking, well, I'm trying to build rockets to go to the moon and I have a multi-billion-dollar empire. Why I gotta meditate? I got a million projects to do. He's probably not meditating that much. He probably does some. Most successful people do have some practice, by the way. They work on their mind, otherwise they wouldn't be successful. But he has a favorable circumstance, right? But he might not really push. He might not really practice hard. But then a bad situation can be a good situation. What if his empire crumbles? What if Amazon goes bust? He's still got $100 billion, even if Amazon goes bust. He's not going to die. But the suffering of it, the loss, the impact on his ego might make him reflect and be like, holy mackerel, I thought I was a king of existence. I built up this trillion-dollar industry and it went bust, I've learned that everything is transitory. I've started to really digest this lesson of impermanence. And now I'm going to practice because the weight on my heart and my karmic debt is deep. Then a bad situation is a good situation. So impermanence pushes us. So it's very hard to judge, to say, am I in a good place, a bad place? None of that judgment is necessary. You are where you are. And when the very first step is the awareness. Oh, the seeing of where you are. And the biggest problem is, they have a lovely quote. They say the biggest problem is that human beings think that they have time. We all think we have time. I can do this tomorrow. I can do this next week. I can do it once I've sold my house. I can do it once my children are out of college, right? Always looking for this perfect situation that never comes around. And then time, like a thief, steals away the opportunity. And then you're left with, at the end of the process, an oh shit. Now what? So, if you look at a lot of teachers who give talks, they emphasize this point. Let us use this time. Let us use this opportunity to wake up, to truly experience what it is to be alive, to really resuscitate this emergent heart of love within us and to spread it for others, to help others along the path. What is your purpose? When someone is hungry, you give them food. When someone is thirsty, you give them drink. When someone needs help with practice, you don't know all the answers. I don't know all the answers. You do your best. You give them a little guidance with humility. You give them a little guidance. We're all helping each other along the path. We're all each other's teachers, right? The humility is particularly important because you can hinder people karmically. You can think you know all the answers and you can be all smart and sassy and tell them all this wonderful stuff that could actually be harmful. You could set people back. So always with humility, always with humility. You show them the humility. Say, hey, I'm working, you're working, we're working. I don't know everything, but believe me, sit with me for an hour. You're going to know more than you did an hour ago. You're going to at least know that you can do it. You're going to know how jumbled up your mind is. You're going to know that there is a way forward, because the avoidance of yourself is just creating your own hell over and over and over again. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Is there anybody on Zoom that has a question, a follow-up, or homework or something that they would like to present or ask about? If you do, please just kind of raise your hand and I'll call on you. Yeah, Adela, lovely. I love hearing what's going on with you. Please unmic yourself.
I was just going to update. Remember, I was having trouble going for longer meditations.
Yes.
So we've been steadily doing 50 minutes, Gil and I,
Okay.
and it's going wonderfully. So I know that, it can be a ride, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, but lately it's been really good. So I just wanted to share that.
Tell me something that you're physically experiencing.
First of all, it just, I don't want to stop meditating. It feels that good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, there's this lightness and there's openness, and the sound shifts the way I experience physically the world while I'm meditating. It feels altered and expanded. And it feels good. And I've been struggling, God, for months with my mind just being yak, 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 and not being able to focus and getting distracted. So anyway, this is 3 days, just FYI. The last 3 days have been so amazing. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. Anyway, I just wanted to share, sometimes it's down and then sometimes it's up. So right now I'm in an up phase. So it's wonderful.
I'm very glad that you shared that for 2 reasons. One, there is the caution because when we feel bliss, bliss is, it's blissful to not be constantly assaulted with our ego. Our ego causes us so much anxiety and constant tension. We don't even realize it. And then when we have a little bit of freedom from it, it's blissful. It really is. But there can be where we start to expect it and we start to become sad if we don't have that blissful experience. So if you have a difficult meditation next and the mind says, where is that good feeling? And it craves a good feeling, it can create an attachment. So just let that go. But having a good experience and feeling good and feeling blissful is perfectly fine. It's okay. You don't have to feel bad. You don't have to feel good. You just feel what's going on. And it is inspiring to let other people know because some people, they practice and they never feel the relaxation to feel a little space and a little bliss. But I'll tell you something now. Meditation and the bliss of experiencing your true self, it is better than sex. It's better than drugs. It's better than anything you can find in this existence. I guarantee you that. It's better than the best shot of heroin or whatever else you want to compare it to. Because all of those experiences are experiences of chasing. You get temporary gratification, and then you get the letdown after. The experience, the unadulterated experience of self when ego starts to calm down and become porous is an unconditioned experience. Unconditioned means not based on what happened before or after. It's the experience of getting out of your own way. So this experience of getting out of your own way, starting to experience life on its own terms, that you don't have to construct. It's always available. You just drop it. In Zen, they say, put it all down. Put it all down. Cut off your head. Drop body and mind. Let life flood in. Let life flood in. So sometimes it's really wonderful for you to bring that up because, one, it can give people a little inspiration. They're like, well, geez, I'd like some bliss. All I get is knee pain. Some people are thinking that. And other people are like, oh, okay, then there can be some nice rest stops along the way in meditation. Yeah, for sure. And then it's also another sign that when you start to relax, you just have more resources. You come out of 50 minutes, your body relaxed. Gil could probably yell at you and you'd probably handle it with a smile and be like, Gil, normally we're going to fight about this, but right now I'm just going to let it go because I just feel good enough that I have so much love for you right now that you could literally, like steal my phone and I'd probably not get mad for at least 15 minutes. So that's amazing. I'm so glad that you shared that with us. That's amazing. Anybody else have something that they would like to share or comment on or anything like that? Teresa, I'd love to hear from you, and we'll get to you, Amir, after. Teresa, please.
Okay. You had instructed me in meditating just to breathe in and breathe out, just watch the breath rise and fall. So I had a very upsetting kind of nightmare, but just really based in old characters, but real characters in my life. And I woke up and I was very upset and it felt very, very real. And rather than rethink the dream as I tried to go back to sleep, I just let it go. And I just, like, as if I was meditating, attended to my breath. And what was really, really cool, because I wasn't thinking about the content of the dream anymore. And I could feel my body and I could feel this rise in energy in my body and up into my chest. And then tears, like these just tears came, and I wasn't thinking, it was just the energy. And then I quickly went back to sleep. So I make up that there was some level of pain or something in my body that released. And I don't know what, I'd like to hear what you would have to say about that.
So I'm very happy. Everybody's having some great stories tonight. So that's a great one too. What's really interesting is that I emphasize technique for a reason, because a lot of people don't emphasize technique. So when you have a very bad dream like you had, if you had no technique, you just sit there and stew on it. You'd be very unhappy. The momentum, the karmic momentum would just drive you forward. But you had enough of a technique where you've had enough grounding that your mind knew to go there. So your mind knew to go there, you do your practice. And then this is a very important thing for all of us to not just understand, but to experience, that all of our emotions and our suffering have an energetic resonance. It pushes you. When you're angry, what happens is that anger rises. When you stuff it down, it makes you sick, mentally, spiritually, physically sick. It really does. And it can be measured. It can be measured on blood tests. It can be measured on EKGs. It can be measured on ultrasounds. The experience of this repression is tremendous damage to our body. So the first step is like, I need help, because if I just sit there and look at anger, I'm just going to get more angry. I'm just going to replay the thought over and over in my head. It's just going to get worse. So you do your technique. You wait it out, you have time, you let the emotional energy of it actually be where it wants to be. It's going to rise. Fear rises, or sometimes sinks, actually. You can piss or shit yourself if you're scared enough. But emotions of like anger, frustration rises for sure, right? Sadness rises. And then very interestingly, you felt a transformation. There is this alchemy, this changing. And then this anger, frustration, or whatever it is you're feeling, turn to tears, the content you weren't paying attention to, and you just let it go. You just release the tears. And you know what's so zen about what you said? And then I went to sleep. And just went back to sleep. You're like, did that, moving on, right? But this learning lesson, because it's ingrained in your body, the more times you do it, there is a process where our nervous system adapts. What that means is you have something traumatic that happens to you, your nervous system clenches down. You don't process it. But now your nervous system actually relaxed a little bit. It processed a little bit. So you're like, oh, something happens. I clench down. I learn to relax. It rises. It energetically calms down and releases. It's this process of clenching and relaxing that you can physically experience in your physical and energetic body. Once you are very attuned to your nervous system, you'll feel when you're clenching. You'll feel when you're relaxing. This is like when your neck and shoulders are hunched and tight and you don't even know it because you're all bunged up. But once you get attuned to your body, you always know where your neck and shoulders are eventually. You'll always know it. And you'll find yourself releasing your neck and shoulders. I do. I probably release my neck and shoulders, no doubt, 100 times a day, because I just feel myself starting to bunch up. You want to notice something else? Where do you keep the tension in your belly? Tension happens, you flex your belly. Where do you keep the tension in your ass, in your rectum? I'm serious. You're clenching and you don't even know it. When someone's talking to you and you're tense, you're clenching. And then you realize, you're like, oh my God, I'm clenching like I'm literally trying to store money up there. And then you just relax that. And you're like, holy mackerel, I didn't realize I was so tight. We're doing this all day, every day. We're not processing what's going through us. Is there any wonder why we're so sick? We're not processing what's going through us, even minor things. Even somebody cutting you off in traffic, we don't process it well, much less major things like being abused, not having food, not being able to do things in life that you need to do, the pressures of all of that. Those are big things that we're not processing. right? This is why the importance of doing this kind of work is that much more relevant. Once you start to realize and be very, very honest with yourself about all of the damage that you're doing to yourself, you start to take it seriously. And because we have so little self-love, oftentimes the eye opener is when we realize how much damage we're doing to those we love. When we wake up to the damage that we're doing to others that we love, that's the wake-up call. That's the cold water, because we don't love each other enough. We don't love ourselves much at all. But when you talk about someone, there's always someone you love more than you. Like, I don't know if it's Gilbert for Adela and if it's Adela for Gilbert, but let's assume, like, if Gilbert has needs, if he breaks his ankle and he needs Adela to wake up in the middle of the night and drive him to the hospital, she's groggy and mad. She didn't want to do it. Gilbert was stupid. He shouldn't have walked up in the middle of the night and tried to drink orange juice with his socks on. I don't know. But she does it. She's like, all right, I hate you, brother, but I love you enough to take you. And she takes him. Her brother's well-being is more important than her comfort. The comfort of just getting a little bit more sleep. She cares about him more than that. So this waking up to another person's suffering, because everybody has watershed important moments. Sometimes you'll recognize it. What that means is someone's suffering somewhere in life will penetrate your heart so deeply that in that moment you have tremendous opportunity to wake up. And if you have any consciousness, you'll feel the importance of the moment to you. You'll feel it. You'll be like, holy shit, I'm going through a moment. I'm going through something so intense for me right now that I can either clamp down or I can open. And this open might not be easy because all your habituation is saying, clamp down, clamp down. But it's rich with opportunity to truly make a quantum leap, to let that heart really open up. If we had to really work on our karma one teacup at a time, the metaphor of one teacup of water out of the ocean every moment as we're trying to empty our karma, man, that is a long journey. But in any thought moment, you can penetrate truly to shatter your heart and to burn tremendous karma. And the depth of your awakening, how deep it is measured by how much karmic release you can do. So some people, when they wake up, they release so much karma, they're changed forever. Stop smoking, stop drinking, stop whoring. All of a sudden, they're like a straight and narrow guy. Can happen in just a moment. Other people wake up a little bit. They're like, wow, that was neat. Then they go straight for their next drink, straight for their next booty call or whatever it is their habitual action is. Right? How much does it penetrate you? That was a really good story and a really good realization. So I want you to check in, Teresa, with what was the physical sensation. So don't go back there or meditate or dwell on it, but just check in and say, oh, okay, there was a tightness. Then there was the conscious process of relaxing. And then there was just that experience of letting it be what it is. Check in with the physicality. The mind was a labyrinth. You get stuck there. Check in with the body. The body's going to tell you the truth of it. Okay. Amir, you had a question you wanted to follow up on?
Yes, I got homework a couple of weeks ago. You told me to put the word love and try to look at it without reading it.
Yes.
And so I actually have a little artwork, just says love on it. So I said, this is perfect. I'm going to put it right next to my nightstand. And I take a look at it a couple of times every day, but I have a hard time looking at it and not reading it for what it is. So it hasn't been working out too well.
Do you have it right now with you?
I do not. It's home. I'm not home right now.
Okay, so we're going to do a quick little Zen interview. So I want you to kind of get in Zen interview mindset, which means I want you to sit up a little bit straight. And I want you to just stop thinking as far as like what your answer should be. Okay. So what you're going to, I know you can't see me and my screen's not moving, but what you're going to pretend is I'm literally holding up that picture that you have, that love picture that you have in your house. I'm sitting across from you right now, and I'm holding it in my hand. I'm holding it in front of your face so you can see it. So I'm going to ask you, Amir, what's this? You hit the floor. Only that?
I'll give you a hug.
Okay. So that's a good answer. I'm not going to accept it from you. I'll accept it from Brian. I'll accept it from Mason. You've seen that. So it can be accepted from you, and I can believe that's a true answer from you if I believed your answer. I don't believe you right now. Okay. So I'm going to push back. What that means is your answer can be right, but your presentation can still be wrong. Okay. So I'm going to push back a little. So we're going to stop and I'm going to say, okay, not good, not bad. How can you show me what this is? I'm holding it up in front of you. What this is without a hug. One more time.
Put my hand on my heart.
Oh, okay. That's a little better. That is a little better. That's showing me where it lives in you. That's good. But the paper's in front of you. The letters LOVE are written down on this paper. I need you to communicate the reality of that to me without engaging your thinking mind. So I'm going to ask you one more time. You're going to hit hard. You're not going to think about the answer. You're just going to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Amir, what's this? Only that?
Blow you a kiss.
All right. So that's a continuation of the hug answer. So I'll give you a 50%. I'll give you a 50%. So 50% is farther than 0%, but it's still not quite 100%. So still work on that. Still work on that. Okay. But it's amazing what you just said. You're like, I've been staring at this damn piece of paper for 2 weeks and I can't look at it without reading it. That's how instantaneously your mind, the intellectual, discriminative mind, kicks in. It kicks in less than a millisecond. Every time you see something or hear something, you're judging it instantaneously. Because of the judgment, you can't see it for what it is. You can't hear it for what it is, smell it, taste it, touch it, think clearly for what it is, because the instant judgment is layered right on. Does that make sense to everybody? That's something that we can all experience. Something happens in our mind, immediately judges the situation. The point right now is not to say, oh, I shouldn't judge. That's also a mistake. Judging is not wrong. It's not bad. It's just a function of the mind, right? Your mind is trying to decide if something is harmful or not. That's not a bad thing. But a hyper judging, where we think that the results of our judging are true, that is a harmful thing. It's like saying, whatever it is that you believe, you see somebody on TV and they have a different idea than you. They believe in a certain political idea. You're like, that's bad, that's wrong. But then the person next to you says that political idea is right. I think that's 100% correct. Now, all of a sudden, two of you have competing worldviews, and now you want to have a disagreement. This is how countries go to war. This is how religious wars are started. It's from people having different ideas about the truth, right? When you talk about it like that, it sounds kind of silly, doesn't it? I'm going to go ahead and take my army of 1 million people and invade your country because your ideas are different than mine. I feel like that's going to benefit the world. It sounds kind of ridiculous when you say it out loud, but that's the reality of how most people live their lives, right? Like with the advent of social media and Facebook and all these things where everybody's trolling, it's amazing how negative a lot of these threads can be. People are just, because they don't have to meet you and they don't have to deal with social pressure, you don't get to see their face. It's just like the meanness starts to come out, right? The self-righteousness. Self-righteousness has been a perennial issue with human beings, but I see it as one of the core complications of modern times is self-righteousness. this I'm right, you're wrongness, right? Everybody's so self-righteous. It's amazing. Even when I think about, for example, like, I don't want to be controversial, but when people talk about masks or something, I'm not going to talk about good or bad about them. But all I'm going to say is there's kind of a couple different camps. One camp is good, one camp is bad, and they both judge each other. You know, I have friends who've had their partners break up with them over masks, for inoculations. These are loving couples. And because one person has a different idea, the other person literally broke up with them. It's amazing. It's because it upset their sense of right and wrong and identity. The identification with that idea was so strong that if you're not going to be in my camp, we can't hang out, we can't be friends. But everything else in life can be okay. We get along in everything else. We like the same foods. We enjoy the same things. We have a great relationship. But you don't believe what I believe, can't hang out with you. Right? It happens around us all the time, right? It's amazing. It's amazing. This is how silly and also how tragic this process of people's karmic identification becomes. Just look at what we're doing to each other all day, every day. We're breaking down into these camps. We're causing ourselves to suffer needlessly. If there were evolved aliens coming down in flying saucers and looking at us, you know, I don't know what they're thinking, but a guesstimation is, what the fuck? You know, you guys you're sitting there, you just took your 1,000,000-man army and killed this other 1,000,000-man army over an idea. What the fuck? It's ridiculous. Is this globe, how is this country, how is this Earth ever going to mobilize its resources to go to different planets, to overcome climate change? All these big projects that we need to do as human beings, how can we do it if we're fighting about the minutia all the time, right? But we try. I'm hopeful that our better nature, that our true nature will win out. But it doesn't mean that we're going to live in utopia without any bad things happening to us. These negative influences that are putting us into a bad situation can be a good situation. They are the seeds of your awakening. They are the seeds. So if you say, Gene, I want to work hard so I can be reborn in the Pure Land, I say you are in the Pure Land now. You are there. You have all the circumstances you need. You just need to do the work. Okay. Anybody else a question or a comment to wrap up with? Anyone else have something they would like to contribute? Okay, wonderful. So those are all wonderful stories today. These are important. And what you start to notice is it's really interesting. For example, Adela, she just sat 50 minutes. She had a euphoric experience. That's not a common thing that happens in your first week of meditation. So when we have new people and they're sitting, I mention this to everybody, questions change. People, when they first start to sit, they say, well, my legs hurt. What do I do? This is coming up. And those aren't lower or inferior questions. They're just questions depending upon where you are, right? And then your questions change. Like now I'm sitting 50 minutes, I feel good. And then at one point, I'm sure in a week, Adela is going to say, I sat 10 minutes and I felt terrible. Because the pendulum swings, right? But then she's going to say, wow, from this 10 minutes of terrible, where I was literally in hell meditation, I had a penetrating insight that I was attached to feeling good. And then she's going to say, oh, but then I felt good again and I wasn't attached to it. I just enjoyed feeling good. Right after that, I sat 30 minutes and that 30 minutes was blissful, but I wasn't attached to it. It was just a lovely experience, right? You know, when I was first starting to have some openness of heart, I remember driving cross country. You know, the feeling of freedom you get when you're driving cross country? Oh my God, if you've never done it, it feels so good to be on the road. When you first start and you have energy and you're excited, you turn on the radio and some awesome song's on and you're just driving and the sun's starting to set and the colors are so beautiful. It might be one of the more alive feelings in your life if you've ever had that. I remember being very aware of it. because life when I was younger was full of heartache and difficulties like most of us. And then I felt that freedom. And I wanted to somehow burn the picture in my brain. And I wanted to take that feeling and hold it in my heart. I literally stared at the sunset with ferocity, hoping to never forget it. I literally tried to clasp the joy and hold it in my heart. And I felt immediately how the joy would seep out and how this picture that I wanted to burn in my brain became less clear the more I tried to hold on to it. And every effort at grasping hastened how quickly I lost it. I lost it even faster because I was holding it so tight. And then there's that interesting bittersweet experience of, wow, love the moment, be present, but understand that it passes, the good and the bad. Those are the kernels of wisdom, right? The kernels of wisdom. Yes, Amir.
So yeah, I have a quick comment about what we're talking about. I've been experiencing something interesting lately. Are you familiar with the Spotify, the music app?
Sure, I am.
So I like house music and trance music. And once in a while I would hear a song that I really like. And whenever it would come up just randomly, I would really enjoy it. But then I realized that I could look up that song and then put it in my own album. And I have that song at any time that I want. So I said, this is going to be great. I'm just going to get all these songs that I love. I'm going to put them together. But something very interesting happened. As soon as I did that, my joy for these songs, it just wasn't the same anymore when I had them at my fingertips instead of just learning to let them go.
Yeah, that's funny, right? It's amazing. The joy of any particular song is where you were at that moment when that song was played. What was your state of mind? What was around you? Set and setting, right? Just like doing plant medicine, you could do an amazing plant medicine with an amazing teacher and be in a shitty ass setting, it could be shitty. You could do plant medicine with a shitty teacher, be in a great setting, it could be awesome. You could do plant medicine by yourself at home with no set and setting, it could be awesome or shitty. We don't know, there's a crapshoot there. So all of these things are situational, right? All of these things, they call it codependent origination, which means all of these factors mixed together to create a unique set of circumstances that made what happened at that time happened. And you know what? Any unique moment can never be truly 100% recreated. Like the best song you ever heard. I remember when I first went cross country, the first thing we did when we turned on the radio and we hit the open road, this was 1989, by the way, I'm an old man. So we turned on the radio and it was Right Here, Right Now. It was like a one-hit wonder. It was a song that was on the radio and the Berlin Wall was falling. It was starting to get broken. I'm in the car. It's summer. Right Here, Right Now is playing. Open road. It was an amazing confluence of events. Never again in my life will I have the Berlin Wall fall as I'm growing cross country, as I'm 18 years old, with my first bit of freedom, listening to that song. I've heard that song 100 times since then, but it never hit me like that one time, right? Codependent origination. We can't construct it, but I have the recipe. My mother wrote down the recipe for the cake. And why does the cake never taste like my mother's? Because you're not your mom. Your mom put down the exact ingredients, but she's got extra ingredients you don't have. It's called her life, right? She has all of her life that she puts into that cake. Every moment that you have an interaction with someone, you're bringing your whole life to bear. Your whole life to bear. So when you practice, can you practice moment by moment with your whole life to bear? Can you see your whole life brought you to this moment? And can you simultaneously let that whole life go? To let the moment be what it is. Ooh, that was especially profound. I might want to do a mic drop. So we're not going to try to say anything wiser than that because I don't have anything wiser than that to say. So we are going to do just a quick round of chanting. I know we're talking a little bit long today, but we're going to do a little Qigong Bosai for that beautiful bird that died at Mason's feet. And then we're going to close. So Jijang Bosal is Jijang. It sounds just like that, Jijang. And Bosal is just Bodhisattva. We're just calling Jijang Bosal, saying, hey, brother, come and take this poor bird on its next journey. And I would say also, hey, brother Jijang Bosal, why don't you come and take us all on our next journey, which is the very next moment of this life. Jijang Bosal, 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 Jijang Bosal. Try this activity when you walk throughout your day and you see dead animals, dead insects, dead anything come across your path. Just say to yourself, Jijang Bosai. It's a little prayer, a little sacred time to wish that consciousness a beneficial rebirth. We have a chance to practice every day. I come across something dead, a dead bug, even something you hate like a cockroach. Jijang Bosai, move it on, move it on. Give it a little push. Okay? So we'll put our hands in prayer and repeat after me. May all beings heal.
May all beings heal.
May all beings awaken.
May all beings awaken.
May all beings abide in awakening.
May all beings abide in awakening.
Shiminpa. Breathe in. Out. In and out with a little half bow. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you for sticking by, even though the Zoom froze. So we're good for next Friday. I'm really appreciative of all your lovely practice, and you're working so hard. It makes me very honored and proud to be with you. Much love to you till next week. Bye-bye.